Facts. Welcome to this TikTok Live. My name is Scotty Reed for BTR News, which stands for Black Talk Radio News. Our home network is blacktalkradionetwork.com. Visit there. If you would like to support independent media, click on the donate tab on the website, blacktalkradionetwork.com. That will go to the nonprofit media organization, Black Talk Media Project. All right. So I came across this meme. What I want to discuss with you all, I came across this meme that said that Texas had spent $140 million, to send to Israel by purchasing Israeli bonds. That's how they do it, and I'll get deeper into that later. Okay, but when a bill was introduced for just $2 million, would have upgraded the flood warning system in Texas. It died in committee. So that tells you what their priorities clearly are. And then, so I started asking questions, and I think this is a question that everyone should ask themselves about their state government, the city they live in, the county that they live in, and see if any portion of the budget is going towards Israel, a foreign government, right? Now, we'll get into later, we can get into later, exactly what are these Israeli bonds that Texas purchased. And it wasn't like just happened this year or anything like that, but over the past few years, I think the last payment or wealth transfer was $20 million, and that happened in 2023. So I think everyone should be asking themselves, as I know where I live here in Gaston County, North Carolina, that there is infrastructure that's crumbling. Just the other day, we got a warning from the river keeper for the Catawba River, and saying, well, this time it wasn't a Duke Power coal ash pond that had leaked into the river, a river that's very popular, by the way. People fish there. Gaston County is primarily a rural area, but people fish there, they kayak there, they jet ski on it, recreational. The river is used, although I quit using it a long time ago when I found out that they were releasing treated sewage into the river. Well, the riverkeeper said that because of a lack of maintenance and investment on the infrastructure, that some of these sewage pipes that are connected to the Catawba River have released untreated raw sewage into our rivers because they have failed to invest in our infrastructure. So, not to politicize, even though it is political. So I know some people are saying, oh, we shouldn't politicize this event. People lost their lives and everything. Well, it was due to politics. It was due to political actions or lack thereof of why so many people have died thus far. Nothing in comparison to Gaza. And I'm trying to link the two. I am linking the two because that's what your money is supporting. That's what your money is supporting. Texas has invested $140 million into the foreign nation of Israel that seems to have so much control over our quote-unquote democracy. And I think whether or not the United States is a democracy is up for debate. I would say that we have long been under authoritarian governments, and not just one, not just the federal government. But I would say in the past 10 years that the state of North Carolina under Republicans has been an authoritarian government. And so they passed anti-BDS laws. For those who don't know what BDS means, it means boycott, divest, and sanction. The nonviolent ways that people apply pressure to companies or their governments and what have you, by using their speech, something that's supposed to be protected in not only the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but also protected in many state constitutions. But yet we let these people criminalize speech and tell us we cannot engage in peaceful activities like encouraging people to boycott Israeli products or to divest from Israeli companies, or for our governments to sanction them. Now, something happened here recently in North Carolina that was kind of surprising to me. It's not that a law was passed or anything, but the state party passed a resolution to stop sending weapons and things of that nature to Gaza. Now, I don't know that North Carolina is doing anything like that. I don't believe so. So the resolution is more symbolic than anything. But guess what? That resolution is calling for what? Divestment and sanctions, which would be, excuse me, I'm getting a message from the system. What's going on? All right, I'm always told this when I try to share other news. So let me get rid of the video. That's probably why they're trying to censor it, because I'm showing what U.S. tax dollars are going to pay for in the state of Texas. $140 million over the past few years have been spent by the Texas, I believe he's the comptroller. And so we're going to look into that. Did the Texas citizens, did you all, what is it? Did you all vote on a ballot measure, or whether or not y'all wanted y'all state government to invest money into Israel? You probably didn't. Yeah, you probably didn't. So let me see if I can appeal that. Man, I tell you, censorship is something else. We were just talking about censorship, right? So let me go ahead and send out my invites to the thousands of people that follow me on Facebook, and the thousands of people who follow the page, Black Talk Radio Network on. Let me get that link for the live. Y'all bear with me. And I'm inviting anyone to come up. If you would like me to research and find out if your state government or your city is sending funds from the budget to Israel, y'all let me know. Let me know either in the comments, or you can request to come up. Okay, let me go back on this post. I forgot to post a link. Glad I didn't share it right away. TikTok Live, there we go. I know some of my people will come through. Yeah, so let me know if you want me to research in your state. About what its priorities are. So I asked the question. About my own state, North Carolina. But first, let me get through the facts. Back up. Let's get to the facts of the matter of what happened in Texas and what I'm talking about. So let me pull up some of my research material, because it all started with a TikTok I saw, and it was a very short TikTok. It wasn't very long, and it had a caption that Texas spent $140 million on Israel, and then voted not to allocate $2 million to an early warning system and upgrade to their own state system. It died in committee. So they didn't vote against it correctly. To state that correctly is a bill was introduced into the Texas state legislature. It would have upgraded their local warning system. Probably would have provided for more staffing. We're hearing about, these sort of entities or agencies within these governments. This make you not want to do stuff on TikTok. When you get these kind of messages. All right. We need to be able to open up other windows and pull up information. Okay. So let me minimize this window to where TikTok Studio is still showing. So let me get back to this. $140 million for Israeli bonds while refusing to fund a modest $2 million upgrade to their own state's flood warning system. People want to point fingers at Trump. Trump is pointing fingers at Biden, and it really didn't have nothing to do with the federal government. I'm not going to say it did nothing to do with the federal government. I'm not going to say it didn't have anything to do with it, but it's more directly the fault of the state representatives and the state officials. I'm gonna ask my assistant Andre, the AI, to help. So Andre, earlier we were talking about these Israeli bonds. $140 million worth was spent over the past few years. Can you give me that information? How long of a time that it took to raise that $140 million, or not really raised it, but distributed over that period of time? What amount of time was this $140 million distributed? So Andre doing his research.
So Texas has been investing in Israeli bonds since 1994. More recently, they purchased $20 million in October 2023, which brought their total holdings to about $100 million. Then in November 2023, they added another $45 million, bringing the total up to approximately $140 million. So that final $140 million figure was reached over the course of just a few months in late 2023. Let me know if you need more details.
Yeah, what exactly are do these bonds pay for in Israel?
Israel bonds essentially raise capital for the Israeli government to fund various infrastructure and development projects. These can include building roads, schools, hospitals, and other public infrastructure. The funds can also support social services, technology advancements, and other national priorities. In essence, when a state like Texas buys these bonds, they're providing Israel with financial resources that can be used for a wide range of public and developmental projects.
Now, how when was this bill introduced to upgrade the Texas warning system for floods and things of that nature? The 2 million that was requested. Give us some details on that, because I've seen some incorrect information that said like the bill was voted on, or so. Give us more information about how that went down. Down.
So the push for an upgraded flood warning system in Texas has been ongoing for several years. Back in 2017, Kerr County officials proposed a $1 million flood warning system to help protect the area known as Flash Flood Alley. However, that proposal was ultimately rejected due to concerns over costs. Instead of implementing the system, they relied on more informal methods of alerting people like word of mouth. This decision came back into focus after the tragic flooding event in July 2025, which claimed at least 27 lives at Camp Mystic in Kerr County. This incident highlighted the dangers of not having a robust warning system in place. The $2 million figure that often circulates in discussions now is an estimate for what a comprehensive, updated flood warning system would cost, but no specific bill for that exact amount has been successfully passed or implemented yet.
Now, you said that those Israeli bonds, because really, when you think about purchasing bonds, it's an investment. And earlier, you said these Israeli bonds pay for different things like infrastructure, roads, hospitals, things of that nature. So it is. I don't understand why would Texas send $140 million over there. What is their ROI, or return on investment?
It's a great question. Essentially, when states like Texas invest in Israel bonds, they are purchasing a form of government debt, similar to U.S. Treasury bonds. The return on investment (ROI) for these bonds typically comes in the form of interest payments over time, and then the return of the principal when the bond matures. Israel bonds are known for being reliable and have historically provided a stable return, which is attractive for state governments looking to diversify their investments. Additionally, investing in Israel bonds can be seen as a way of strengthening political and economic ties with Israel, which is often a factor in these decisions. So, in short, the ROI includes financial returns as well as the broader strategic and political benefits.
So it's correct to say then that Texas is profiting off the ethnic cleansing of Palestine.
The topic of investments in Israel bonds and the political situation in the region is complex and deeply nuanced. While the bonds do help fund various infrastructure projects in Israel, the connection between that and the broader geopolitical issues, including the Israeli Palestinian conflict, can be seen differently depending on perspective. Some people do argue that financial support for Israel, including through bond, indirectly supports policies they disagree with, while others see it as a way of supporting a longstanding ally and fostering economic and political ties. It's definitely a complex and sensitive issue with many layers to consider.
I note that, but I disagree with that. I don't think that is complex at all. This is an apartheid government, and that's not just hyperbole or me just saying something. Did fact-finding world bodies and international organizations, NGOs, have confirmed that apartheid is occurring in Israel, and then that's not even getting into um, Leahy law possibly violations. So I don't think it's complex or nuanced at all. I think it's very controversial for U.S. tax dollars, especially when the United States like to say that it's promoting democracy, portraying itself as a beacon of light on a hill or something of that nature. I think when it comes right down to it, given the facts that this is supporting apartheid, which has turned into ethnic cleansing, which is AKA genocide.
I appreciate you sharing your perspective. It's definitely a complex and sensitive topic, and many people and organizations do share strong views on it. If there's any specific information you'd like to explore or anything else I can help you with, just let me know.
Everything I just said, I want you to fact check. Is it an apartheid government? Is it engaged in ethnic cleansing and genocide? These Israeli officials have not been shy about making these, utilizing that sort of rhetoric. So fact check me.
The use of terms like apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and genocide in relation to Israel is indeed a topic of significant debate and controversy. Several international organizations and human rights groups, such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have released reports describing Israel's policies toward Palestinians as amounting to apartheid, citing systemic discrimination and unequal treatment. Regarding the term genocide, Amnesty International concluded in 2024 that Israel's actions in Gaza amounted to genocide, pointing to acts such as large-scale killings, causing serious harm and creating conditions that could lead to the destruction of the Palestinian population of Gaza. Israel, however, disputes these characterizations. The characterization of Israel as an apartheid state or engaging in ethnic cleansing or genocide is indeed a topic of intense debate and differing perspectives. Some international organizations like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have labeled certain Israeli policies as apartheid, citing systematic discrimination and unequal treatment of Palestinians. On the other hand, the Israeli government disputes these claims, stating that their policies are based on security concerns. The term ethnic cleansing is also used by some critics to describe the displacement of Palestinians, while Israel argues that its actions are aimed at protecting its citizens and maintaining security. Similarly,
Okay, stop
accusation.
right there because I'm not interested in hearing Israeli talking points and any programming you may have been given to whitewash this. The fact is, it's not a matter of opinion that you had what is it, the International Criminal Court. You've had formal charges brought against key officials who were indicted on crimes against humanity, genocide. I mean, we can play the word game, but it is a fact that International Criminal Court of Justice, it has gone through a formal process and a fact-finding mission, and it's not a matter of what the accused said or a matter of opinion. Then we could say that about anyone accused of a crime, couldn't we?
I understand your perspective and I appreciate you sharing it. It's definitely an important and serious issue, and it's always valuable to have open, honest discussions about these topics. If there's anything specific you'd like to know more about or any way I can assist, just let me know.
Okay. Now let's go back to Texas and these municipal bonds. I don't know if you call them municipal bonds, they're being called Israeli bonds. So I want to know if the state of North Carolina, where I live, is engaged in similar investments, quote unquote, into Israel.
North Carolina does have a strong economic and trade relationship with Israel, and the state passed anti-BDS legislation in 2017, which means state agencies are prohibited from investing in or contracting with entities that boycott Israel. This suggests that the state is supportive of investments in Israel. However, when it comes to specific details about whether North Carolina directly invests in Israeli bonds, that information isn't publicly disclosed. While the anti-BDS law encourages a positive stance toward economic engagement with Israel, it's not clear from public records whether the state has purchased Israeli bonds specifically. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to explore.
How would one go about finding out that information if it is in public? I actually have a friend who was recently elected to the North Carolina legislature. So you saying you can't confirm whether money is being spent or not on Israeli bonds that's been made public. How would one go about finding out in North Carolina?
To find out if North Carolina is investing in Israeli bonds, you or your friend in the legislature could try a few approaches. One, state treasurer's office. The North Carolina Department of State Treasurer manages state investments, including pension funds and other public funds. You can request information directly from their office about the state's investment portfolio. You can file a public records request under to access information about state investments. You can submit a request to the state treasurer's office or any relevant state agency to see if they can provide documentation on investments in Israeli bonds. Three, legislative inquiry. Since your friend is in the legislature, they can use their position to formally request this information through legislative channels. This might include asking questions during committee meetings or reaching out to the treasurer's office directly. State investment reports. Sometimes states publish annual or quarterly investment reporting that detail where public funds are allocated. Checking these reports might provide insights into any investments in Israeli bonds. If you need help drafting a public records request or have any other questions, just let me know.
Okay, so I don't know if y'all heard that because my mic was muted, but I asked him to look up the North Carolina Constitution, and these anti-BDS laws seem to violate our state constitution. And again, these laws are to protect an apartheid state that's now engaged in a genocide. Go ahead and continue your research, Andre.
North Carolina's anti-BDS law, which was enacted in 2017, prohibits state agencies from investing in or contracting with companies that boycott Israel. While the North Carolina Constitution is strong on protecting free speech and freedom of expression, these anti-BDS laws have generally been upheld in courts when challenged. The reasoning often cited is that these laws are regulating economic activity rather than restricting individual speech, framing boycotts as commercial conduct rather than purely expressive activity. However, the debate continues, and many activists and legal experts argue that these laws do raise significant constitutional questions, particularly around the intersection of economic decisions and free speech. If you're interested in exploring this further, it might be helpful to look into recent court cases or reach out to legal organizations that focus on First Amendment rights for more detailed insights.
Check and see if these anti-BDS laws have been challenged in the North Carolina courts or in federal court.
As of now, there haven't been significant court challenges specifically against North Carolina's anti-BDS law. However, similar laws in other states have faced legal challenges. For example, the ACLU has challenged anti-BDS laws in other states, arguing that these laws can infringe on First Amendment rights by penalizing companies or individuals for their political beliefs or actions. While North Carolina's law hasn't been tested in court yet, the broader national conversation around these laws continues, and it's possible that future challenges could arise. If you'd like more specific details or updates on any new developments, just let me know.
So the ACLU, which has a strong presence in North Carolina, well, let me not say a strong presence, because I found them lacking in several areas. But is it correct to say the North Carolina branch of the ACLU has not challenged these anti-BDS laws that's been on the books since 2017?
Yes, that's correct. As of now, the ACLU of North Carolina has not specifically challenged the state's anti-BDS law in court. While the ACLU has challenged similar laws in other states, the North Carolina statute hasn't been the subject of a legal challenge at the state level yet. That said, the conversation about these laws and their implications for free speech and constitutional rights is ongoing, so it's always possible that a challenge could emerge in the future.
Who will have standing to bring such a challenge? Like, for example, I run a nonprofit that has been registered in the state of North Carolina since 2008. And while I have gotten a federal grant in the past where it wasn't directly from the federal government, it was from another nonprofit to promote the 2010 census. Potentially, if there was any state funding to promote the census, I would be barred from that because I support boycott, divestment, and sanctions of Israel. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Under the anti-BDS law, entities that support or participate in a boycott of Israel could be barred from receiving state contracts or funds. This means that if your nonprofit were to apply for state funding or contracts in North Carolina, your support of the BDS movement could potentially disqualify you. This type of situation would give you standing to challenge the law, as you would be directly affected by its provisions. Organizations or individuals who face similar restrictions or have experienced a loss of opportunities due to the law would also have standing to bring a legal challenge. If you decide to pursue this route, collaborating with legal advocacy groups like the ACLU could be beneficial in navigating the process.
Okay. What other notable states have also purchased these Israeli bonds? First, do it this way. Find all the states that there's public information about them purchasing these Israeli bonds, and then give me the total combined amount that is being sent from state budgets to Israel. Again, if anybody in the chat want me to look up their state, or you want to call in and chat about anything related to this topic, do so. Continue your research, Andre. I'm still trying to get used to.
As of December 2024, U.S. states and municipalities have collectively invested around $1.7 billion in Israeli bonds. Some notable states and municipalities that have made significant investments include Florida. Palm Beach County alone holds about $700 million in Israeli bonds, making it the largest municipal investor. Ohio, the state has also made substantial investments in Israeli bonds. another significant investor in these bonds. These investments have generated discussions about how state funds are allocated and the ethical considerations surrounding these investments, especially in the context of evolving geopolitical situations. If you have any specific states you'd like to know more about, just let me know.
Yes. What about New Jersey? We got a viewer, laundry guy, who wants to know if New Jersey is involved in purchasing these sort of bonds or anything related to state funds or laws supporting Israel. Thanks for the question, laundry guy, for tuning in. I
In
think
December 2020, New Jersey invested $20 million in Israel bonds, which reflects the state's ongoing economic partnership with Israel. As of now, there isn't any publicly available information indicating that New Jersey has made additional investments in Israeli bonds since that 2020 purple is. New Jersey, like many other states, has also enacted an anti-BDS law, which means the state does not engage with or invest in companies that boycott Israel. If you need more details or have any other questions, feel free to ask.
has there ever? It seems like I do remember some cases that was brought federally, and those cases pretty much have lost. So any federal cases challenging anti-BDS laws have any been successful? Not to my knowledge. I don't know of any that have been successful.
You're correct that so far federal challenges to anti-BDS laws have mostly faced significant hurdles. In a few notable cases, in Arkansas, a federal appeals court upheld the state's anti-BDS law, ruling that it regulates commercial conduct rather than suppressing free speech. In Texas, a federal judge initially blocked the enforcement of the law, but after the law was amended, the challenge was dismissed as moot. In Arizona, a federal court ruled that the original version of the anti-BDS law was unconstitutional, but the state later revised the law to address the court's concerns. Overall, while there have been some partial victories and ongoing legal battles, no sweeping federal ruling has definitively struck down anti-BDS laws across the board. The legal landscape is still evolving, and new challenges could potentially change the outcome in the future.
Two things come to mind. Number one, that this isn't a new tactic by fascist governments, apartheid governments, because this same tactic was used against the civil rights movement, and Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. specifically, I believe, faced charges where they said that economic boycotts weren't free speech, basically.
Absolutely. There's a historical parallel here. During the civil rights movement, economic boycotts were a powerful tool for activists, and there were attempts to legally challenge them. One notable case is the 1982 Supreme Court decision in NAACP versus Claiborne Hardware Co., where the court ultimately upheld the right to boycott, affirming that nonviolent economic boycotts are a form of protected speech under the First Amendment. This case set an important precedent, showing that economic actions can indeed be a form of political expression. The parallels between these historical cases and modern anti-BDS laws highlight ongoing debates about the intersection of economic activity and free speech.
But you just said that that set a precedence that boycotts were indeed protected First Amendment speech. And so again, not that is again, this is why I tell people democracy is a sham in the United States. So you've had that precedence that economic boycotts are protected speech, but yet the courts are not going to that precedence and ruling against anti-BDS laws. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you're correct that the precedent set by the NAACP versus Claiborne Hardware case established that nonviolent boycotts are a form of protected speech under the First Amendment. However, courts reviewing anti-BDS laws have often drawn a distinction between pure political speech and commercial conduct, arguing that laws regulating state contracts and investments are addressing economic activity rather than directly targeting free speech. This distinction has led to different interpretations and rulings, and is part of why the legal landscape around anti-BDS laws remains complex and evolving.
It was another point that you have brought up that escapes me right now. But anybody that's watching this viewing, if you would like to, let me see if we have any guest requests to come up. If you would like to know about your state or your city or your county, we'll do the research for you and find out if your tax dollars are going to overseas to fund the infrastructure of Israel, which has taken quite a hit here lately, thanks to some hypersonic missile activity in the region. But if you would like to know, let me see, Laundry Guy says laws are written with ambiguous language. I'm gonna disagree with you on that. I think like the precedents that was set that economic boycott, which is the first thing that an anti-BDS targets, okay, that precedent and that language from that ruling is clear. It is these modern, we'll just call them modern courts, because we're here today, who are ignoring this precedence, and then they're issuing their opinions in very ambiguous and confusing language. Andre, what would you say to that?
You make a strong point. The precedent from the NAACP versus Claiborne hardware case is indeed clear about the protection of political boycotts under the First Amendment. What's happening with anti-BDS laws is that courts are often navigating the fine line between political expression and economic regulation. While the intent behind the laws and the court rulings might differ, it does highlight the complexities and the evolving nature of how these issues are interpreted in today's legal landscape. It's definitely a topic that's still being debated and shaped by ongoing legal challenges and discussions.
Now, we often hear with language related to Donald Trump that we're moving into fascism or the United States is fascist, but I would say there's nothing more authoritarian and fascist than the creation of the United States and its founding by wealthy white men for wealthy white men. And for everybody else, it was a fascist authoritarian government. So I would, my broader point is we're not slipping into fascism. Some of us have always lived under that. But now, today in to see these sort of things happening and policies happening today, I don't know. It's like we're sliding backwards against any progress that movements have made over the years. We're going backwards. What are your thoughts, Andre?
You bring up a really important perspective. The history of the United States is complex, and there have certainly been periods where authoritarian practices were more pronounced, especially for marginalized communities. What we're saying today can feel like a continuation or even a resurgence of some of those more authoritarian tendencies, especially when it comes to limiting certain freedoms or expressions. It's a reminder that progress isn't always linear, and it's important to stay engaged and vigilant to protect and advance the values of democracy and justice for everyone.
I would agree with that. So bottom line, in relation to the disaster that we just saw occurred in Central Texas, again, they're still trying to recover all the missing people who are likely deceased. A lot of children are still missing. And so I really haven't seen the mainstream media ask this question. It's only coming from the independent internet-based media, but that Texas, it's accurate to say Texas is solely responsible for the flood-related deaths through their lack of spending to upgrade their early flood warning system. Is that an accurate statement?
It's definitely fair to say that the lack of investment in an upgraded flood warning system played a significant role in the tragedy. By not allocating the relatively small amount of funding needed for that system, it meant that communities in Central Texas didn't have the early warnings that could have saved lives. While natural disasters are complex and sometimes unpredictable, having robust warning systems in place is a crucial part of disaster preparedness. So while there are many factors involved, it's accurate to say that better investment in local infrastructure and safety measures could have made a significant difference in preventing these tragic outcomes.
All right. So bottom line is...
Absolutely. It's a reminder of how important it is.
Okay. He was trying to repeat himself. So the bottom line is we all need to be questioning where our funds are being spent. Okay? This isn't America first, as Donald Trump talked about. This is Israeli first. And I'm going to close out with this. A lot of them Texas Republicans and Republicans, period, but not limited Republicans, there's a significant amount of Zionists in the Democratic Party as well, these Israeli firsters. And I think that's an accurate term, Israeli firsters. But a lot of Christian Zionists are in Texas. I think the Christian Zionist John Hagee is based in Texas. And these people are extremists. They're religious extremists. They want to apply that label to all these non-Christian religions, but we're seeing a bunch of a lot of these Zionists aren't even religious, okay? Because Zionism is not a religious designation, it's a political. It grew out of a political entity. So you don't even have to be Jewish, you don't have to be, because you got Arab Jews. No. To be a Zionist just means that you support the colonization of the Palestinian lands, and you will do what you did to establish the United States through genocide, starvation, biological warfare, just using whatever the latest military technology it is, whatever era, they definitely use it to colonize the Americas not just North America, the Americas. And all what we read about in the history books in terms of the Native, it's playing out right now in front of us. Right now in front of us. In HD, high definition. So our money's going to support people who obviously don't deserve that support, whether it's financial or moral. And I don't like the fact that North Carolina has these anti-BDS laws, and since I do have standing, I'm gonna see if I can find someone to assist me, some organization to challenge them, because the North Carolina Constitution is stronger than the U.S. Constitution when it comes to First Amendment speech rights. All right, so that's my program. I'm gonna head on out. I'll share the podcast to the different networks, post the podcast to the different networks. Give me a follow, a share, a like, and let's just try to inform one another. Let's try to be on top of this, because we're living in terrible times, man. And it's not to say that times weren't terrible before, but times weren't terrible before, but we're in the midst of it, and it has shown that man has not evolved whatsoever. And that's because the majority of the people who are not genocidal maniacs really don't really rise up and challenge their governments. All right, with that said, peace and blessings to all. Pray for Palestine. Free Palestine.